The morning my brother came home from rehab, my mother made his favorite breakfast: scrambled eggs with cheddar, sourdough toast, fresh squeezed orange juice. She set the table with the good placemats, the linen ones she only brought out for Thanksgiving and Christmas. I stood in the doorway of the kitchen watching her hum to herself, and I thought, she has never once made breakfast for me like that. Not when I graduated nursing school. Not when I got my first apartment. Not when I caught my first apartment. Not when I paid off her car. I told myself I wasn't jealous. I was 31 years old. I was too old to be jealous of table settings. I was wrong about a lot of things that year. My brother's name is Ryan. He's 4 years younger than me, which means I spent most of my childhood being the one who was supposed to know better. When he broke Mom's jewelry box at 8 years old, I was 12 and should have been watching him. When he wrecked her car at 17, I was 21 and should have talked to him more about responsibility. There was always a reason why his mistakes were connected to something I hadn't done enough of. My dad left when I was 9. He didn't leave dramatically. No shouting, no thrown dishes. He just started coming home later and later until one day he stopped coming home at all. My mom worked double shifts at the dry cleaners on Maple for years after that, and I became the kind of kid who made her own lunch and remembered to take out the trash without being asked. By the time I was in high school, I was the one signing permission slips when she had a closing shift. I was the one making sure Ryan did his homework. I don't say this to sound noble. I say it because I need you to understand what I thought family meant. I thought it meant you showed up. I thought it meant the people who knew your whole story were the ones you could trust with anything. I was a nurse by then, working med-surg at a hospital 40 minutes from the house I grew up in. I had a good salary, good benefits, a small savings account that I'd been building for 3 years toward a down payment on a condo. Not a big condo, not somewhere fancy, just something mine, with a coat closet that didn't smell like other people's cooking and a bathroom I didn't have to share. I had $41,000 saved. I want you to remember that number. Ryan had been struggling since his mid-20s. Alcohol first, then pills, the kind that start as a prescription and become something else over time. My mother spent years covering for him, calling his boss when he couldn't get out of bed, lending him money that she told me was for car repairs or a security deposit. I knew. I always knew. But I also knew my mother, and I knew there was no version of that conversation that ended with her listening to me. When he finally agreed to go to a residential program, everyone acted like a miracle had happened. My aunt called me crying. My mom lit a candle at church. Ryan had 30 days at a facility in Scottsdale, a real program, the kind with licensed counselors and structured schedules and family therapy sessions on Sundays. It cost $18,000 out of pocket. Insurance covered almost none of it. My mom called me from the kitchen table the night before his intake date. I could hear her voice doing that thing it does when she's already decided something and is just waiting to see if I'll make it difficult. "I don't have that kind of money sitting around," she said. "You know I don't." "I know," I said. "I've already looked into everything. There's a payment plan, but the interest is terrible, and they want a deposit by tomorrow morning or they give his spot to someone else." I asked her how much she needed up front. $10,000, she said. "Just to hold the spot. We can figure out the rest." I heard the "we." I cataloged it. I said nothing about it. I transferred the money that night. I told myself it was a loan. I even sent her a text afterward that said, "This is a loan." "This is a loan, okay? I want to make sure we're on the same page." She sent back a heart emoji. Just a heart emoji. Nothing else. Ryan went to Scottsdale. 30 days. He came back looking healthier than I'd seen him in years. Clear eyes, steady hands, a kind of quiet about him that felt earned. My mother made the scrambled eggs. She used the good placemats. I stood in the doorway and told myself I was happy for him. I was. I genuinely was. I just thought maybe someone would also say thank you. Nobody said thank you. The following months were fine. Ryan was going to meetings. He got a job at a logistics company. Not glamorous, but steady. My mom seemed lighter than she'd been in years. I kept working my shifts, kept depositing into my savings account, and I let myself think that maybe we'd all just quietly move forward. The thing about being the responsible one is that people stop checking on you. They assume you're fine because you look fine, because you have always handled things. Nobody asks if you're tired. Nobody thinks to. In February, about 8 months after Ryan's discharge, my mother called me again. I was at work. I stepped into the break room to take it. "I need to talk to you about something," she said. The tone. I knew the tone. She told me that Ryan had relapsed. "Not badly," she said. "Not hospitalization bad, but bad enough that he'd missed a week of work and his supervisor was threatening to let him go." She'd been covering for him again, making excuses, lying for him the way she'd always lied for him, and now she'd also apparently been lending him money. "How much?" I asked. A pause. "I've been pulling from the account," she said. I thought she meant her own account. I assumed she meant her own account. "What account, Mom?" Another pause. Longer this time. "I'm still on your savings account," she said. "From when you were in school." You never told me to take myself off. And I thought, just temporarily, just until I could get my next paycheck, I set my coffee cup down on the break room table very carefully. "How much?" I said again. She told me, $11,200 over 4 months. Small withdrawals at first, 300 here, 500 there. Then larger ones, the kind that are easy to miss if you're not checking every week. I hadn't been checking every week because I trusted that nothing was happening. I trusted that a joint account from when I was 19 and needed a co-signer was just an old administrative detail, not an open door. "It was for Ryan," she said, "for his bills, and there was a situation with the landlord, and I didn't want him to lose his apartment because that would set him back, and I thought you'd use my money." I said, "I thought you'd understand." I stood you'd understand. I stood in the break room for a very long time after I hung up. One of my coworkers knocked on the door to ask if I was okay, and I said yes, fine, be right out. I washed my hands at the sink even though I hadn't done anything that required washing. I looked at myself in the mirror above the faucet. 31 years old, a nurse. The responsible one. I went back to my patients. I didn't call her back that night. I sat in my car in the hospital parking garage for 20 minutes after my shift, and I made a list on my phone. Just a list. Things I knew to be true. She had access to my account because I'd added her 11 years ago when I went to college out of state and I was young, and it seemed practical. She was my emergency contact and my account co-signer. And I had never, in 11 years, thought to change either of those things. Because why would I? Because family. $11,200, plus the $10,000 I'd lent her for Ryan's treatment. That was over $21,000. Half of what I'd saved. I called my bank first thing the next morning. I'd done some research the night before. I knew I couldn't simply remove a joint account holder without closing the account and opening a new one. So that's what I did. I went in person. I sat across from a banker, and I closed the account and opened a new one with a new account number and a new routing number and my name only. I moved every remaining dollar. Then I called a financial counselor, the kind who works with people after a financial crisis, because I needed someone to tell me what my options were. She was patient and clear, and she didn't make me feel stupid. She said what had happened was technically considered unauthorized use of account funds, that my mother's status as a joint account holder complicated civil action but didn't eliminate it entirely, and that I should document everything. I documented everything. My mother called 3 times that first week. I let them go to voicemail. The first message was apologetic, in the way she gets apologetic. Lots of "I didn't have a choice, and I was trying to protect your brother, and I knew you'd be upset, but I didn't think you'd be this upset." The second message was shorter. The third one was mostly silence and then her saying my name once and hanging up. Ryan called too, just once. He said, "I didn't know she was doing that. I want you to know that." I believed him. I also knew it didn't change anything. My aunt called to tell me that family doesn't give up on each other. I told her I wasn't giving up on anyone. I was just done subsidizing choices that no one had asked me to subsidize. She called me cold. People say that about you when you stop making yourself convenient. Cold. Hard. Selfish. Like boundaries are a personality flaw and not just the basic math of what you can afford to keep giving away. There's a thing that happens when you grow up being the responsible one in a family that isn't. You spend so much time managing everyone else's emergencies that you start to believe your needs are optional. Your savings account is a community fund. Your stability is a resource for people who are less stable. You don't resent it exactly, or you do resent it, but only very quietly in the middle of the night when you're too tired to pretend otherwise. I'd been telling myself for years that I chose this, that I wanted to help, and maybe that was true once. But there's a difference between choosing to help someone and having help extracted from you without your knowledge, in small increments, over 4 months, by the person who was supposed to be your safe harbor. What hurt most wasn't even the money. It was that she hadn't asked. If she had called me and said, "Ryan is struggling. I don't know what to do. I need help," I would have helped. I would have been frustrated, and I would have needed time to think it through. And I would have set some conditions, but I would have helped, because he is my brother and she is my mother, and that still means something to me. But she didn't ask. She just took. She weighed the situation against her own discomfort of asking me, and she decided the easier option was to go in through a back door I didn't know was still open. That's what I couldn't stop thinking about. Not the money, the calculation. I started therapy in March. I want to say that plainly because I think people should say it plainly. I started therapy because I needed somewhere to put all of this where it wouldn't poison everything else in my life. My therapist is a calm woman with an office full of plants, and she has said very few dramatic things to me, which I appreciate. She asks good questions. She lets me sit in the uncomfortable ones. One session, about 6 weeks in, she asked me what I would tell a patient who came to me describing this situation. A patient whose family member had accessed their finances without permission, consistently over years. I said I would tell them it wasn't their fault, that being trusting isn't the same as being foolish, that the person who violated the trust is responsible for the violation, not the person who extended it. She nodded, and then she waited. It took me a minute. "I know," I said. "I know. Do you?" she said. "I know. Do you?" she said. "I'm still working on that part. My savings account now has one name on it. I've set up automatic transfers, a separate emergency fund, and I check the balance every Sunday morning with my coffee. Not obsessively, just deliberately. The way I should have been paying attention all along. Ryan has been sober for 8 months now as of last week. I know this because my aunt texts me updates I didn't ask for. I am glad he's doing well. I am genuinely, uncomplicatedly glad, in a way that surprised me when I noticed it. I thought maybe I'd be bitter. I thought resentment might have taken over the whole room, but there's still something in me that wants him to be okay. I just can no longer afford to want it more than he wants it for himself. My mother and I talk occasionally, short calls, careful conversations. She hasn't apologized. Not a real apology. Not the kind that takes responsibility without immediately explaining why it wasn't really her fault. I've stopped waiting for it. Waiting for something someone is not able to give you is its own kind of debt you carry. I'm not moving forward because everything is resolved. I'm moving forward because I'm not going to keep standing still in a place where things hurt. I found a condo last month. 2 bedrooms. More than I need, but the price was right and the light in the second bedroom is extraordinary in the mornings. It's 20 minutes from the hospital. There's a coffee shop on the corner that I've already been to 4 times in 2 weeks. The coat closet is deep and smells like cedar. I'm closing in 6 weeks. I told my mother over the phone. There was a pause, and then she said she was proud of me. I said thank you. We hung up. I sat with that for a while. The smallness of it, the distance, the way that conversation would have looked so different 3 years ago when I was still the version of myself who needed her to be proud of me. I don't need it now. That's not a tragedy. That's just what it looks like when something changes. I think about the woman I was at 19, adding her name to my account because it seemed practical. She was trying to be responsible. She was trying to be responsible. She was trying to plan for emergencies. She couldn't have known that the emergency she was planning for would be one she'd need protection from. I'm not angry at her. I'm not angry at myself. I'm just different now. In the specific way you become different after you stop being available for your own disappearance. There's a night shift I work every other Thursday. I get to the hospital at 10:30 and I walk through the main entrance when it's quiet and the hallways have that particular sound. Shoes on tile, distant monitors, the hum of a building that doesn't stop just because the day does. I used to find the night shift lonely. Now I find it clarifying. Something about being useful at the hour when most people are asleep makes me feel like I am, finally, doing things in the right order. Taking care of myself first, then seeing what's left to give. You can love your family and still understand that love is not the same as unlimited access. You can want good things for the people who hurt you without making yourself the instrument of their recovery. You can stop being the one who absorbs everything: the debts, the excuses, the silences, the collect calls to your account, and still be a good person. You are allowed to protect what you built. You are allowed to put your name on the door. I've thought a lot about what I could have done differently, and I mean really thought about it. Not the self-blame spiral, but the honest accounting. The kind you do at 2 in the morning when the apartment is quiet and you're finally willing to look at the full picture. Here's what I keep coming back to. I didn't do anything wrong by trusting my mother. What I did wrong was confuse trust with the absence of structure. I trusted her, so I never checked. I trusted her, so I left a door open that I'd forgotten existed. Trust isn't a reason to stop paying attention. That's not cynicism. That's just what I wish someone had told me at 19. What happened to me wasn't random. My mother didn't wake up one day and decide to become someone who steals from her daughter. She became that person slowly, across years of small compromises. Covering for Ryan, lying to his employers, moving money around to patch holes that kept getting wider. Every time she made that choice and nothing bad happened, the next choice got a little easier. That's how it works. Not with a villain's cackle, but with a quiet, incremental surrender of what you know is right. By the time she accessed my account, she had already practiced dishonesty so many times that it probably didn't feel like dishonesty anymore. It felt like necessity, and I practiced being available for so long that she probably didn't think I'd notice. Or if I noticed, she probably calculated that I'd absorb it the way I'd always absorbed things. That's the pattern we built together, the two of us, over 30 years. She extracted and I endured, and we both called it family. What broke the pattern wasn't rage. I want to be clear about that. I was angry, yes, but anger alone doesn't change anything. What changed things was a decision. A quiet, deliberate decision to stop participating in an arrangement that was costing me more than I could afford to lose. Not just financially. The $21,000 mattered. But what mattered more was the version of myself I was becoming by continuing to show up for people who weren't showing up for me. Ryan is doing better. I'm genuinely glad. I hope he stays sober and builds something real for himself. Not because I need anything from him, but because I remember who he was before everything got hard, and that kid deserved better too. People who struggle aren't villains, but the people who love them don't have to fund the struggle indefinitely without being asked. My mother and I are still figuring out what we are to each other now. It's slow, and it's careful, and some weeks it's nothing at all. I don't know if that ever fully repairs. I stopped needing it to happen on a timeline. What I know is this: I have a condo with my name on the deed. I have a savings account with my name only on the account. I have a life I built carefully, dollar by dollar, shift by shift, Thursday night by Thursday night. Nobody gets to walk in through a back door I forgot to close and take what I built. Not anymore. That's not coldness. That's what it looks like when someone who spent years absorbing everything finally decides to put the weight down. You can love someone and still protect yourself from them. Those two things are not opposites. The clearer I get on that, the more I think it might be the most important thing I've ever learned.